After I refused to sleep with a client, my promotion vanished overnight and the CEO said, "This industry isn't for morally conflicted people." So I did my job to the letter, waited for the backlash, then sent legal every screenshot and voicemail. I was standing in the tiny conference room on the 14th floor of our Chicago office, watching my promotion vanish in real time. HR sat across from me with that blank expression they use when they know they're doing something dirty, but want to pretend it's policy. My manager, Alina, wouldn't even look at me. She just kept clicking her pen and repeating, "This decision was made at the executive level." The part that gutted me wasn't the demotion itself. It was the fact that everyone in that room knew exactly why this was happening. 2 nights earlier, one of our highest-paying clients, Mark Devlin, had put his hand on my thigh during a dinner meeting and asked me to sweeten the deal if I wanted the promotion to go through. I had told him as calmly as I could to remove his hand or I'd remove it for him. I walked out, reported it to my manager, thought I did the right thing. Apparently, I had done the wrong thing. Because now Alina was telling me I was being reassigned to the Maple Nest account, a dying client we all took turns babysitting until they officially closed. It was where they sent people they wanted gone, but didn't want to fire. "It's temporary," she claimed, but her eyes said, "Don't fight this." The CEO, Damon West, called me into his office right after. He didn't even sit down, just closed the door, leaned against his desk, and said in this slow, condescending tone, "This industry isn't for morally conflicted people." I stared at him. Morally conflicted, I reported harassment. He shrugged like I'd told him the coffee machine broke. "Mark brings in $8 million a year. Your job is to keep him happy. If you can't handle that, maybe this isn't the right place for you." That line sat in my chest like ice. The next weeks were a blur of quiet retaliation. Suddenly I was too rigid, difficult, uncooperative. Alina nitpicked everything I did. Meetings were mysteriously moved without me. My ideas were off track. Every day felt like some calculated psychological squeeze meant to make me quit. And Maple Nest, God, it was a corpse of an account. Their CEO had checked out months ago. Their budget was gone. No one touched it unless forced. I answered emails, ran reports no one read, attended calls where the Maple Nest team spent half the time arguing with each other. It was punishment disguised as reassignment. Then one morning, out of nowhere, Mark Devlin resurfaced. He emailed Alina, CCing Damon and half the executive team, complaining that I was sabotaging his new campaign. Apparently, he'd heard I was distracted on Maple Nest and demanded that I be reassigned back to him, or he'd consider pulling his business entirely. I hadn't spoken to him since the dinner. I sure as hell hadn't touched his campaign, but the email spread like wildfire. Suddenly, Alina was storming toward my desk asking what I'd done. Damon wanted a meeting immediately. HR scheduled a performance review, and then legal emailed me. Short, blunt, formal. "We understand there may have been prior inappropriate conduct involving Mr. Devlin. If you have any documentation related to that event, please forward it to us as soon as possible." I stared at the screen, heart pounding, because I did have documentation. More than anyone knew, a recording, a transcript, screenshots, every disgusting message he sent after I rejected him. Proof that would not only blow up Mark's career but drag my company down with him. I hovered over the Attach Files button. And just as I clicked Upload, the office fire alarm went off. Not a drill, not an accident. And what happened next, that was the first real sign that something much darker was going on. The entire office poured into the stairwell like a panicked herd, everyone complaining about deadlines and client calls as we shuffled down 13 flights. But my mind wasn't on the alarm. It was on the flash drive in my pocket, the one holding every message Mark had sent me after that dinner, including the audio where he said, laughing, "Come on, sweetheart, everyone pays a price for moving up." I hadn't planned on recording anything that night. I wasn't paranoid by nature. But earlier that week, another woman, Alyssa, a senior strategist, had warned me quietly in the bathroom, "If you ever have dinner with Mark, record everything." Trust me, her face had looked empty, like someone who'd been drained of her own story, so I listened. And thank God I did. We spilled out onto Wacker Drive, crowds forming little clusters on the sidewalk. Alina kept whispering furiously into her phone a few yards away. Damon was nowhere to be seen. I stood alone against a cold wind coming off the river, trying to settle the shaking in my hands. While the alarm blared overhead, my mind drifted back to when all of this began. Before Mark, before the promotion, before the office turned into a quiet battlefield. I'd been with the company, Helix and Row Advertising, for 4 years. Started as a junior account coordinator making barely enough to afford rent in Logan Square. I hustled like my life depended on it, because in a way, it did. My mom was sick, my brother was still in college, and I was the only steady income in the family. So I stayed late, worked weekends, handled clients no one else wanted, and volunteered for every major pitch. Damon loved people like me, hungry, loyal, too tired to question anything. When the promotion to account director was first mentioned, it felt like proof that everything I'd sacrificed actually meant something. I'd earned it. No shortcuts. No favors, just work. Then came the night of the pitch dinner. It was supposed to be a celebration. Our team had just secured 2 massive campaigns, and Mark wanted to discuss next quarter's alignment. I didn't think twice. I'd handled difficult men before, condescending, arrogant, ego-heavy. But nothing prepared me for how quickly Mark shifted from talking numbers to sliding a hotel keycard across the table like it was a business offer. I remembered the way the waiter paused, like he wasn't sure if he should interrupt. I remembered Mark smiling with that lazy entitlement rich men wear like cologne. I remembered my stomach turning, a mix of disbelief and rage. I refused him, calmly, directly, and that's when he said it. "You're ambitious, right? So be practical." I walked out. I messaged Alina immediately. At first, she responded with alarm. "Are you okay? What happened?" "Report everything." But by morning, her tone shifted. "Let's handle this internally. Don't escalate, it could get messy." By afternoon, she barely responded at all. A week later, Mark was bragging about how under control everything was. My promotion disappeared. And I was shoved onto Maple Nest like I was the problem. Standing on the sidewalk during the fire alarm, I realized something. This wasn't just about Mark. This was a system, a web. And I had accidentally tugged on a string no one wanted moved. When the all-clear finally sounded and we were herded back inside, HR was waiting for me at the elevator. "Legal is requesting your documentation," they said. "Please provide it today." Their eyes lingered too long, like they were memorizing my face. And for the first time, I wondered if I was safe at all inside that building. Back upstairs, everything felt off. People avoided eye contact. Conversations stopped when I walked by. Even the interns, usually loud and oblivious, sat straight like they'd been warned to behave. It felt like the air itself knew something I didn't. I got to my desk and saw the email from legal again, bold and waiting. "Please provide documentation today." My fingers were still cold from outside, but I opened my bag and slipped the flash drive into my palm. I didn't plug it in yet. I just held it, feeling its weight. It felt heavier than plastic, like whatever I did next would decide the rest of my life. Before I could second-guess myself, a Slack message popped up. "Alina, come to my office right now. Bring the file." "No, please." No explanation, just pressure. I stood up slowly. The office seemed to stretch and warp around me as I walked toward her glass-walled office. She was inside, pacing like she hadn't stopped since the fire alarm. As soon as I stepped in, she closed the door and dropped her voice. "Listen to me carefully. You need to delete whatever you have. Do not send anything to legal." I froze. "Why?" She didn't answer. She just exhaled and brushed her hair back like she was trying to steady herself. "Some things don't go the way you expect. If you send anything, it won't end how you think." I stared at her. "Are you threatening me?" "No," she said quickly. "I'm warning you." Her eyes weren't hard like they'd been for weeks. They were scared. Before I could ask anything else, she added, "Damon wants to see you in the executive conference room in 10 minutes. Every part of me screamed that something was wrong. I walked back to my desk, pulse thudding in my ears. The conference room she mentioned wasn't the regular one. The executive one was deep in the corner of the floor, soundproofed, the kind of room they used for board meetings or firing people they wanted silenced. I opened my email to forward the files to legal, just to protect myself, but as soon as I clicked the attachment icon, my monitor flickered. Then it went black for a full second. When it came back, all the icons on my desktop were gone, then reappeared, then gone again. IT issues happen sometimes, but not like this. I checked the flash drive. It still sat in my hand. The email window blinked again, then force closed. Another window popped up, a system message I'd never seen before. Administrative access required. Someone was remotely controlling my computer. My stomach dropped. Someone knew I was trying to send the files. I shut the laptop, grabbed my bag, stood up. Then, across the office, Mark Devlin walked out of Damon's office. I hadn't seen him in weeks. He wasn't supposed to be in Chicago. But there he was, in a tailored navy suit, smiling like he owned the place. He shook Damon's hand, then glanced across the room and landed his eyes on me. A smirk. A slow, satisfied smirk. Something inside me hardened. Whatever fear had been building was now fury. As I turned to leave for the executive conference room, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Don't go into that room." I swore under my breath and looked around. No one was near me. No one was using their phone, but someone was watching closely enough to know exactly where I was headed. The text came again, more urgent. "They're not meeting you, they're setting you up." I froze midway down the hall. My phone buzzed one more time, a final message. "Check the Maple Nest folder, now." I didn't understand, but when I opened the files on my drive, the truth hit me so hard my knees actually buckled. I realized Maple Nest wasn't just a dead account, it was a trap, and I was already inside it. The Maple Nest folder was supposed to be empty, or close to it. Dead account, dying budget, barely any activity. But when I opened it, there were dozens of subfolders I'd never seen before, each stamped with my login credentials. I clicked the first one. Invoices, fake invoices. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in consulting fees and creative development retainers. Billed to Maple Nest under my name. Attached to work I had never done. Approvals I had never signed. And signatures that looked like mine but weren't even close if you looked carefully. My chest tightened. My hands went numb. I opened another folder. Emails sent from a spoofed version of my address. Messages to Maple Nest's CFO saying things like, "As discussed, the accelerated billing schedule is standard for accounts of this size." I had never written those. I didn't even know the CFO personally. I checked the timestamps. All sent over the last month. The same month they'd been pushing me toward quiet termination. My head felt like it was buzzing. My vision blurred for a second. They weren't just retaliating against me. They were framing me for fraud. A perfect setup. If Maple Nest blew the whistle, I'd be the fall guy. The disgruntled employee on a failing account who handled billing irregularities. The company would claim they were unaware. Damon would go on CNBC talking about integrity failures. And Mark, untouched, would keep funneling money and deals to the agency. Suddenly, the fire alarm made sense. The sudden IT glitches made sense. Alina's warning made sense. They weren't scared for me. They were scared of what would happen if I found this before they were ready to cut me loose. A cold wave rolled through me as another thought hit. If they were planning to pin fraud on me, then the meeting in the executive conference room wasn't a conversation. It was an ambush. Someone was going to slide a termination packet across the table, and I'd leave that room in handcuffs. My phone buzzed again. "Unknown, did you see it?" My fingers trembled as I typed, "Who is this?" No answer. The bubble stayed silent. I looked up from my desk and realized everyone around me had gone eerily quiet, like they were watching through the corners of their eyes. My phone buzzed a final time. "Unknown. Check the last folder. You need to understand who signed off on all of it." Dread pooled in my stomach. I clicked the final folder. Only one document inside, a PDF titled Authorization Summary Maple Nest Transition. I opened it. The signatures at the bottom were clear, clean, confident. 3 of them, Damon West, Mark Devlin, and the third, the one that hit like a punch to the ribs, Alina Ruiz, my manager, my mentor, the person who once told me I was the future of the agency. Her signature was the largest. She didn't just know about the setup, she helped build it. My ears rang. I felt like someone had tilted the room. Alina wasn't warning me earlier out of guilt or loyalty. She was scared because the plan was unraveling too early. She thought if she convinced me to delete the evidence, they could still contain it. Still fire me quietly. Still pin fraud on me without blowback. But it was too late. I stared at her signature until my eyes burned. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I wanted to storm into her office and demand why she'd chosen to destroy me. But I couldn't, not yet. because as I scrolled, something at the bottom of the PDF made my blood run cold. Primary objective, remove M. Carter prior to Q2 audit. Remove, not fire, remove. And suddenly the fire alarm, the IT interference, the urgent meeting, the way people were watching me, none of it felt corporate anymore. It felt dangerous. And before I could take another breath, someone stopped in front of my desk. I looked up, it was Alina, her face was pale. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "Right now." Alina didn't wait for me to answer. She grabbed my elbow too tightly and steered me toward a small focus room near the kitchen. The kind with no windows and a door that never closed all the way. I pulled my arm back as soon as we stepped inside. "What do you want?" I asked. She shut the door, checked the hallway, then turned to me with this frantic, brittle calm, like someone trying to keep a dam from breaking with their bare hands. "You need to stop digging," she whispered. "Right now." I stared at her. "You forged my signature," she flinched. "It's more complicated than that." "No," I said, my voice cracking. "It's really not." But she kept going, talking fast, her words overlapping. "You don't understand the pressure Damon is under, or the relationships at stake, or you helped them set me up for fraud." Silence. She didn't deny it. She just looked down at the carpet like she couldn't face me. And that's when I realized something. She wasn't scared of what she'd done. She was scared of what was going to happen next. "Alina," I said slowly, "what is in that conference room waiting for me?" Her jaw clenched. Her eyes darted toward the door again. "Please don't go. That's not an answer." She swallowed hard. "They're not firing you." I felt my stomach twist. "Then what?" "They're making Maple Nest the fall account. The auditors are coming early, and the board wants a name attached to the irregularities." She inhaled sharply. "Your name was the cleanest option." My name, cleanest option. Like I was a used rag they could toss in front of an investigator and call it a day. I backed away from her, shaking my head. "You're unbelievable." Her face finally cracked, panic slipping out. "You need to listen to me. If you send anything to legal, they'll come after you harder. Damon already cleared it with the board, the narrative is set. They're prepared to say you acted alone. Mark's willing to testify you've been unstable for months." "Mark," I snapped. "Mark is testifying, the man who tried to get me to sleep with him." She closed her eyes like my words physically hurt. "Don't say that out loud." I almost laughed. "Are you serious?" "You don't understand," she said again, voice breaking. "They're already pushing the story that you were angry you lost the promotion, that you retaliated by manipulating the billing. They have a whole storyline written. And you signed it." Her lip trembled. "I didn't have a choice." "You absolutely did." She looked sick. "Please, please just walk away. Quit quietly. Don't fight this." I stepped closer. "Why are you telling me this now?" Her response was barely audible. "Because they're saying you're unpredictable, that you're a risk. Damon said he won't take chances if you become a problem." A cold chill slid down my spine. "What do you mean, won't take chances?" But she didn't answer. Something inside me snapped. A clean break. Whatever fear had been holding me hostage dissolved into something sharper, focus, clarity, purpose. I walked out of the room without another word. And as soon as the door clicked behind me, I started planning. I couldn't trust HR, couldn't trust legal, couldn't trust internal systems, they were already compromised. So I took the flash drive, tucked it deep into my jacket, and walked straight toward the elevators, not to the executive conference room, but to the ground floor. I needed distance. And safety. And leverage strong enough to blow the entire scheme apart. As the elevator doors closed, my phone buzzed again. "Unknown, good, get out. They're scrambling now. You're not supposed to be off the floor." My pulse hammered. Whoever this was, they weren't guessing. They knew exactly what was happening inside Helix and Row. Another message came through. "Unknown, go somewhere nobody from the office will follow you." Then check what I just sent. A file appeared. A zip folder. I stepped into the lobby and kept walking until I hit the street, cold wind slamming into my face. Then I opened the file. What I saw inside didn't just confirm everything. It added a whole new layer, a twist that made me realize someone in that building wasn't trying to destroy me. Someone was trying to save me. I ducked into the Starbucks across from the building, small, loud, crowded. Exactly the kind of place corporate types avoided during work hours. I grabbed the corner seat facing the door, my back to the wall, my hands still shaking as I opened the file the unknown number had sent. Inside the zip folder were 3 things. 1. A screenshot of an internal Slack thread between Damon, Mark, and Alina. 2. A security access log for the 14th floor server room. 3. A short, grainy video clip. I started with the Slack thread. It was worse than anything I'd imagined. They weren't just planning to blame me, they were rehearsing it. Damon was drafting statements for HR. Mark was supplying behavioral examples. Alina was editing the narrative to make it sound more believable. And the part that made my stomach twist, Damon wrote, "Once we confirm she's isolated, we'll move forward with the removal protocol. No loose ends." Removal protocol. The same phrase I'd seen on the Maple Nest PDF. I felt my throat tighten, but I forced myself to open the second file. The access logs for the server room. My name shouldn't have appeared anywhere near it. I'd never touched the server room, never had a reason to go there. But my badge had been used 3 times that week. Times when I wasn't even in the building. And next to mine, timestamped just minutes before those entries, was another badge. Alina Ruiz. She wasn't just signing documents. She was physically helping plant evidence. I exhaled shakily and clicked on the last file, the video. It was short, 30 seconds, maybe less. The footage was from a hallway camera I didn't recognize, timestamped just after midnight 2 weeks earlier. Damon walked down the corridor talking to someone out of frame. Then the camera angle shifted and Mark stepped into view. My breath caught. I turned up the volume and leaned closer. Mark said, "She'll break." "They always do." Damon shook his head. "She's stubborn, that's why Alina's managing it." Then Mark laughed. "If she gives us trouble, we can just drop the Maple Nest packet and let the auditors handle the rest." It was clear, perfectly clear. They were planning to let regulators handle me, meaning they wanted to ruin me publicly, legally, permanently. But that wasn't the twist. The twist was who sent the files. At the bottom of the video window was a tiny timestamp tag, one that showed which workstation it was pulled from. And it wasn't from some anonymous IT terminal. It was from Alina's computer. My stomach lurched. The unknown number buzzed again. "Unknown, you understand now." I typed with shaking hands, "Is this you?" "Alina," a long pause. Then, "Unknown, yes." For a second I just sat there, staring at the screen as people around me sipped lattes and typed emails, oblivious to the fact that my world had just flipped again. Alina had been warning me. Alina had been sabotaging me. Alina had been covering their tracks. Alina had been forging my signature. And Alina had also been secretly feeding me everything that could destroy Damon and Mark. My mind spun trying to reconcile it. Why help them frame me and then help me escape? Why bury me and then pull me up by the collar before I drowned? A new message came. "Alina, you need to understand something." I didn't know what they were planning at first. I thought it was just politics, but it changed. It turned into something else, something worse. Another message, "Alina, there's a reason they chose you, a specific reason, one Damon won't put in writing." My chest tightened. Me, what reason? She didn't respond immediately. When she finally did, the words made my whole body go cold. "Alina, because this wasn't about you refusing Mark. It was never about that. Damon needed someone he could sacrifice to cover something he did, and you were the only one who got close enough to see it without realizing what you'd seen." I stared at the screen, pulse hammering. Me, what did I see? The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, came back. Then finally, "Alina, something that could put him in prison." My hands went limp. A second later, another text came through, shorter, harder. "Alina, and he knows you have access to it, even if you don't know what it is yet." I froze, feeling the weight of the flash drive in my pocket shift like a living thing. Whatever Damon had done, whatever I had stumbled into, whatever they were trying to bury me for, it wasn't about harassment. It wasn't even about fraud. It was something much bigger. Something I was holding without even knowing it. I sat there in Starbucks gripping my phone, so hard my fingers hurt. The noise around me faded until it felt like I was underwater. Every sound muffled under the weight of Alina's last message. "He knows you have access to it, even if you don't know what it is yet." I stared at those words for a long time before I finally typed, "Me, what did Damon do?" No response. "Me, what am I holding?" Still nothing. I waited, watching the typing bubble flicker on and off like she was fighting herself. Then, finally, her message came through. "Alina, check the original Maple Nest contract. Line items. Vendor breakdown. Then think about who actually signed off on those consulting fees." My pulse kicked. I pulled out the flash drive, opened my laptop, and dug into the Maple Nest contract, the one I'd barely skimmed when they dumped the account on me. The vendor breakdown looked bloated even for a dying account. Outside consultants, market research firms, logistics partners no one had ever mentioned. Millions, not hundreds of thousands, millions. All billed through Maple Nest, all hidden as expansion fees, all routed through shell vendors, fast, sloppy, confident. The kind of fraud you committed only when you were sure no one would look. And every vendor name linked back to a holding company, and every holding company linked back to one person. Damon West. My lungs tightened. I scrolled farther, following the money. Payments disguised as research stipends, creative budgets, and regional fees. All passing through Maple Nest, because Maple Nest was about to collapse anyway. It was a perfect laundering channel. A dying client with no internal oversight, fading leadership, and a trail that could be blamed on a rogue employee when everything eventually came to light. A rogue employee like me. I finally typed me. So he's laundering money. Alina responded almost instantly. Alina, not laundering, embezzling. Laundering would have been smarter. He's siphoning client budgets into shell companies he owns, millions over the last 2 years. Maple Nest was his biggest funnel. That's why they assigned it to you. They needed someone who wouldn't notice. Someone clean enough that the regulators would believe you acted alone. My throat felt raw. Me? Why not someone else? A long pause. Then, Alina, because you were the only one who ever questioned the numbers, even before Maple Nest. You flagged the discrepancy on the Azura account last year. You were right then too, but Damon buried it. I remembered that day. I'd gone to Alina with a question about a missing $80,000 payment. She'd brushed it off. I thought she was overwhelmed. Now I understood she was terrified. Another ping. Alina. Damon saw you as a threat long before Mark ever touched you. I swallowed the rising nausea. Me, so Mark was never the real reason I was targeted. Alina. Mark gave them an excuse. His ego did the rest. Damon needed you discredited, isolated, and disposable. Mark offered the perfect narrative. The harassment made you emotional. The lost promotion made you resentful. And Maple Nest gave them the proof they needed. I leaned back in the chair, dizzy. The entire timeline of the last 2 months rearranged itself in my mind like a puzzle snapping into place. This wasn't personal. This wasn't a grudge. This wasn't about me rejecting Mark. This was Damon eliminating a liability. And Alina, my mentor, my manager, the person who signed off on the forged documents, had helped him because she was scared. Because she'd been in his pocket for years. Because she'd watched what happened to people who got in his way. I typed slowly, me, why help me now? Her answer was immediate. Alina, because I heard what Damon said this morning. He told Mark they're moving up the timeline. That the removal would happen before the auditors arrive. That it needed to look like you panicked and fled after they confront you. A cold shiver slid down my spine. Removal, not firing, not framing. Removal, me. Are you saying they're planning to stage something? Her reply came through like a warning shot. Alina, I'm saying you need to disappear before they can. Whatever you're holding on that drive, it's enough to bury Damon. Enough to ruin Mark. Enough to burn the whole agency down. Another message. Alina, and they know it. That's why they're acting desperate. I looked down at the flash drive, the small, stupid piece of plastic I'd almost left on my desk that morning. Inside, it wasn't just evidence of harassment. Not just evidence of the framed job. But evidence of corporate embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, and a cover-up involving 2 of the highest-ranking men in the company. No wonder my promotion evaporated overnight. No wonder the harassment report vanished. No wonder the fire alarm went off the moment I tried to send the files to legal. They weren't trying to scare me. They were trying to erase me. And in that Starbucks, with people sipping macchiatos around me like nothing was happening, I realized something that chilled me straight through. I was holding the truth that could destroy them all. And they were willing to destroy me first. When the full weight of what I was holding finally settled in my chest, the panic drained out of me and something colder took its place: purpose. I wasn't just fighting for my job anymore. I was fighting to survive. Damon and Mark wanted me erased. Alina was hanging by a thread. And I had the one thing they couldn't afford anyone to see, so I did the only logical thing. I stopped trying to fight them from the inside. I went outside. I spent the next 2 hours in that Starbucks building a firewall around myself, literally and figuratively. First thing I did was drag every file into 3 separate encrypted cloud vaults registered under aliases I'd made years ago for freelance work. Then I shared access with one person who would absolutely never delete anything out of guilt or fear. My older cousin, a cybersecurity analyst in Denver who practically sleeps with his laptop. Insurance, I told him. If anything happens to me, send this to every news outlet you know. He replied back in 20 seconds, holy sh*T. Are these real? I typed, yes, don't call me, don't text me, just hold it. Next, I called the Maple Nest CFO's direct office line, not his corporate email, not his assistant. His private line. His voicemail picked up and I said, calm and clear, this is Mia Carter from Helix and Rowe. You are being billed for fraudulent consulting fees, rooted into shell companies tied to Damon West. I have all documentation. I'll meet you in person with everything tomorrow. Do not alert Helix in any way. I hung up before my voice could shake. Then I walked out of Starbucks, headed straight across Wacker Drive, and went into the Sun-Times newsroom lobby. I didn't talk to a receptionist. I didn't try to sound dramatic. I just said, I have documented corporate embezzlement at Helix and Rowe involving CEO Damon West and major client Mark Devlin. I want to speak to an investigative reporter. By the time the editor came down, I had already printed the Slack thread, the forged invoices, the server room logs, the video clip, and a statement summarizing everything. I handed it all over and said, make copies. If anything happens to me, publish immediately. She read the first page and didn't blink. We'll be in touch very soon. I wasn't done. My last stop was the Illinois Attorney General's office. I dropped off a sealed envelope addressed to the Financial Crimes Division. No explanation, no conversation, just a quiet handoff. Then, and only then, did I go home. I sat on my couch, exhausted, still clutching my phone, wondering if I just burned my entire life down. But the storm hit faster than I expected. The next morning at 6:12 a.m., my phone buzzed nonstop. Alerts exploded across the news. HELIK and ROWE CEO, under investigation for massive embezzlement scheme WHISTLEBLOWER, PROVIDES. Overwhelming. Evidence to Sun-Times fraud tied to Shell COMPANIS, linked to Damon West clients pulling out immediately. Mark DEVLIN unavailable for comment by 8 a.m. Damon had been escorted out of the building by state investigators. By 9:30, Mark's lawyer released a panicked, pathetic statement about cooperating fully. By noon, Maple Nest filed an official breach of contract lawsuit. And Alina, she called me, her voice wrecked small. They're questioning everyone. I told them I'd testify. I'm turning everything over. I didn't say I forgave her. I didn't. But I said, good. That night, the investigative reporter called, the AG's office called, Maple Nest called. All confirming the same thing. My evidence blew the entire scheme wide open. No one was framing me anymore. No one was hunting me. No one could touch me. 2 weeks later, I walked into the empty Helix lobby to pick up my personal belongings. The place felt like a hollow shell. Half the desks were abandoned, boxes everywhere. A company gutted from the inside out. As I turned to leave, Damon's office, glass door cracked open, nameplate gone, caught my eye. I didn't step inside. Didn't need to. I just stood there for a moment, breathing in the quiet wreckage of everything he'd tried to bury me with. On my way out, the security guard nodded at me. Crazy what went down, he murmured. Yeah, I said. Crazy how quickly the truth comes out when it's not scared anymore. He smiled. I walked out into the cold Chicago wind, lighter than I'd felt in months. I didn't get my promotion. I got something better, I got my life back, and I took theirs on the way out.